I always say I don't regret my decision to get into porn. I am who I am today because of that decision.
Right.
I think one of the really important takeaways that I got from that industry is that like love and sex are not necessarily intertwined. Like they don't have to like necessarily coexist. And I always thought, 'cause I was very, very like prude before I got in the industry. I was only with like a couple of guys. I had a really long-term boyfriend. And I kind of got swept up in the idea that like, no, like there is something more when you have sex with somebody. Like they, some people say like they take a part of you, especially if they took your virginity, which my boyfriend at the time did. And you might find yourself stuck in a relationship that you might not necessarily need to be in because you're overemphasizing like the love and physicality connection. So that was really important to me, is that you can have sex unattached, and just because you do have this physical interaction with a person, that doesn't mean that you have to stay. So it honestly gave me a lot more confidence and a lot more of like a healthy way to look at relationships in that regard. And then it also like helped me find myself sexually. Again, I was like really shy, and I learned that sex isn't anything like shameful, and if it's between like consenting adults, that it can be like, a lot of fun, and it's fine if that's all it is. So I think those were the two biggest takeaways of that. And then going into,
so can I ask though,
yeah.
So I appreciate all that. Can I ask in terms of your purpose at the time? Like, how did you understand that? Was it around entertainment? How did you find fulfillment, or was it just about making money?
No, so money like wasn't really a concern for like the first like couple of years. I was just trying to kind of navigate like the industry in general. I would say like my purpose was like I just felt a draw. Like I just felt like something that I was supposed to do. Like you'd call it like, I don't know, like your path or whatever, but I just knew it was something I was supposed to kind of dabble in. As far as like fulfillment went, it took a while for me to get that. So I started to get what I would call like a false sense of fulfillment when I was like starting to get like that, attention or celebrity, if you would call it. But to me, like that's something to be really careful with. Like that's not real. When I actually started to have anything that was like significant, it was often in like emails or letters or DMs by like women specifically saying that they were like forced to like face their own judgment when it came to like sexuality, like that they would be very like harsh in judging me, and then they had to kind of ask themselves, where is that coming from? And then they learned a lot about themselves that they would never have learned otherwise, or from men or couples that are not able to see each other because they're deployed, a lot of military, and saying that they connected into like my content or whatever, or that like I help inspire like a rekindling of like sexuality between people, because a lot of times couples like use porn to reconnect, and I think that in that sense it can be really healthy, because a lot of people get a little bit nervous and we don't really want to say what we like, so it might be easier to put a film on and then enjoy that together. So like those kinds of messages like really made me feel like, okay, like I am doing something more than just getting naked on camera.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because I think it's about reframing our experiences. That's what I talk to my students about. How do you look at this experience and find meaning and fulfillment out of it? And that's something that I hadn't considered. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then how do you do that now as a parent and as a podcaster? Where is your purpose there?
So with podcasting, I try to say like the mission of the podcast or the purpose of a podcast is to kind of like inspire curiosity. So not to just accept something as it is, like always kind of ask why, maybe explore topics that you never thought were like real or interesting or important, to inspire like free thinking. So like really thinking for yourself, not like letting anyone tell you that you have certain like limitations, and then just honestly like more like tolerance, because I think everyone could use more of that.
I wanted to ask real quick about something you mentioned, like, the first couple of years learning to navigate the industry. And you mentioned some like messages that you would get from people showing support and what they were getting from the films that you make. I feel like with patriarchy, which is one thing we want to get into a bit too, competition is very big. And I imagine, right, with the different actors and actresses, like, you're vying for hits. So there's a lot of competition there in the market. Did you find it to be something where it was a supportive environment did other stars kind of help you understand how to navigate these things, or did you have to find it for yourself?
So it's super competitive, and I think I like started to so I made, I guess, like the biggest splash in my career when I was competing for a contract for one big company. So like that was one massive competition. Like you literally had, like 12 girls, whatever, that you were up against for this deal. And I think that on top of just like the way that like views go and likes go and shares go, like we have like this like number that's like staring you in the face, that people look at it kind of like a finite game. And if you talk to anybody, like people with a finite attitude or view on the world tend to not fare as well or succeed as much as people with an infinite view. So it's not like my success is going to directly take away from someone else's. So I never understood like the competition in that regard. Like there's enough room for everyone at the top. Like porn is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So just because my video is getting 24 million views, that doesn't mean yours can't do 50 million views, and we're both going to crush it at the end of the day. So I wish that there was more support. I unfortunately didn't really have a lot of like role models. Anytime I tried to reach out to people get very like shut off. And again, it's a limited mindset. So I wish that there was more community, because it's a lot better. I think one great thing that's happened since COVID is a lot of women are seeing their true potential like through third-party platforms. So now when they do go back to like these big companies, they can kind of demand what their worth is. And I don't think a lot of them would have found that otherwise, because again, like there's not enough community there. So yeah, there was a ton of competition, and hopefully that changes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that idea of self-worth, of value.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to you on a podcast talk about when you would go to LA and then you would come home, your husband would say something like, "Oh, that's Eva coming out." And
Mm-hmm.
you would have to detox, and this idea that you were getting lost in your character, perhaps, right?
Absolutely.
And finding your true self. So talk about that, because it goes into that idea of being a character and having confidence in who you truly are. Like that's a character. That's just something I do as a job.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Candice. And let me get back into that interview. Like I tell students that to prepare for the interview, you have to master the interview. And I think that's what you would do through what you refer to as detox, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think when I would go out there, especially if it was for long stretches of time, like I have to be a little bit more aggressive when I'm out there, because I'm dealing with a lot of men, I'm dealing with a lot of big companies, and at the end of the day, everyone has like their best interest in mind. Like they're not trying to worry about me and my happiness. And technically, I mean, they don't really need to, right? Like that's my job. So in order to create like boundaries that I needed in like the working place, like I had to be a little bit more tough and a little bit more demanding. And sometimes like I wouldn't necessarily turn that off when I got back home, and I would be like a little bit more combative just because I was like in there and in that mindset for so long. And it's like, it's going to sound weird to anyone that's never been in that situation, but if that's like your new neutral, right? Then that's going to be your neutral when you go home. So you have to kind of like realign what your meanings are and like understand that your environment changed, and then I don't necessarily need to bring that character here. And there's definitely a time and place for that to show up, but that's not where I want to live. I don't want to live in an aggressive place. I don't want to live in a hostile place. So it had to be a conscious effort to like make my new neutral like back to like happy Candice, like easygoing Candice. And I love that he would call me out on it, because it's very possible if everyone was like, ooh, okay, I'm just going to let her do her thing, that it would have like taken a toll on me mentally and physically.
Thanks for watching this short clip. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To listen to the full episode, visit soulforceones.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Peace.